Welcome back, everybody, to HGG 2019, and we're in Group C, which is the group of death, Rattles. And with me for this one is Darek, and Darek is going to be Brazil and Mexico.
That's right, two of the premier South American teams, and one of which I'm very, very glad to be seeing here in the Global Games, because I remember last year in Global Games, I feel like our big campaign for the South American countries was Brazil. We were constantly hyping them up, saying, you know, they're better than you think. Argentina isn't the only South American team with strong players, because at that point it was really just Nalgodan and PNC that players had really heard of and they were rooting for. But we were saying race is fantastic, you know, Leo Main, Perna, all these guys have a lot to show. But now with Empanizado making his way into Grandmasters, as we can see there, beautifully demonstrated on the player cam there, I feel like Mexico is really starting to give a run for its money for the rest of the Latin American countries.
I agree entirely, and Impact as well is a player that has made it to a lot of late stages in tournaments without really ever getting that big one. But he's also handy in a tournament like this because his deck building is off the wall without being crazy. So in a team of two where somebody can say, look, we can do that, but no, we can't do that, and temper him just a little bit, they could be a serious threat.
Worth mentioning as well, speaking of Grandmasters, that Torf is probably a player that very few of you have heard of. He's not a player that I had heard of until quite recently. His kind of biggest claim to fame for me is that before the Masters Tour in Bucharest, he was the #1 points earner for Americas and therefore the favourite to get through to Grandmasters. I'm not actually certain what his record was in Bucharest, but clearly it wasn't quite good enough to eclipse Empanizado and Language Hacker.
I believe, but don't nail me to this, Mast, that he went 9-3 in Vegas and 7-5 in Seoul, but didn't qualify for Bucharest.
Right, okay, that makes sense, because I didn't hear anything about him in Bucharest, which is kind of unfortunate, because after two very, very strong runnings like that, you know, you want to follow it up.
And although this looks like your Common or Garden Quest Shaman mirror, and it is, this match has some other decks involved. And those other decks, especially from Brazil, are Nazoth Warrior and Nazoth Priest, and their own version of Druid, which is one of the more out there versions there is. It's the Overflow, Nomi, Safavar version, which is kind of interesting. Mexico, on the other hand, they've got the same sort of Druid. They've got Shark Rogue and they've got Combo Priest. A bit more of a normal lineup, having bigged up Impact's imagination. Seems that they've decided to almost go with a swerve and go with a fairly standard lineup.
You know, Impact's one of those players who, like you said, he knows how to build a good lineup, but I would say he's not one of the wackiest players out there. Like he's good at building the best versions of already good decks. He's not like one of the Tarzes of this world who will just play the absolute nonsense and somehow still win with it.
Yeah, he'll take 28 cards from a deck and then add his own special brew to it, and suddenly it becomes a better deck a lot of the time. But there's not even much special brew in this lineup today.
And he's also just had a baby, so congratulations, Impact.
Yeah.
Good job.
Quests are being quested. That's all I've got to say about this at the moment.
Yeah, this is a matchup that I really should know better, but every time I try and play Quest Shaman on ladder, I load it up, I go into a game, I mulligan for all the cards I want with Aggro Shaman, and half of them aren't in my deck. And I'm just like, why am I playing this garbage? I want to play the good version. And I just go back to the degenerate Mogu Frog version. I mean, this does have a lot of the same stuff, obviously, like the Evolve and Hairs and all that good stuff, but I personally, I'm still just a bigger fan of the Aggro Shaman. However, the impression that I get is while it can be a late game value grind fest, the primary game plan for both of these players is to just explode all over the board with Mogu's, Hairs, and Evolves.
Yeah, and play Shadowwalk if you get that far. That's kind of the unstated obviousness of this one. Obviously, tiptoe our Mogus, which is what they're doing right now, which is somewhere between really intriguing and incredibly tedious, depending how many times you've seen it. I love the little quest counter. That makes me so happy. So just cycling through basically this point to try and find better things. I know Race rates Torf highly. I couldn't find the tweet involved, but he certainly has mentioned him more than one occasion recently.
Right.
And that's good acclaim. If Race thinks you're good, you're probably pretty good.
I wonder.
Impact looking like his normal excited self.
Yeah, I know. He looks like that. I promise he's not actually as downtrodden as he always looks. He's actually one of the more upbeat and like less cynical players we have in Hearthstone. Like he's always just on Twitter being genuinely nice to people, and I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't sound right.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. And he's always fun to be around at events as well.
Yeah, he is.
Good to see the players
trading away
the same.
Sorry, I was going to say trading away all the minions there as much as possible, which I like very much, just because he does not have Mogu Flesh Shapers, and therefore wants to make it that little bit harder for his opponent.
Yeah, and it's worked. What can you say?
It has worked, just.
It's always just. That's how numbers work. It either does or it doesn't. Both sides only have one mutate in their deck as well, which is relevant in terms of allowing them to play it, but not with any other cards. So it can't be evolved, but it could be mutated, but there's only one, so
right.
You could afford most of the time to take the chance.
I like that Torf is diverting from the slightly more standard game plan of just hair, coin, evolve here. Because you really want to get the Mogu in. It does delay you for a turn, maybe 2, but most likely you'll be able to do it on turn 5. But I believe that is a worthwhile diversion from the more standard game plan because of how crazy powerful an 8-drop is.
This is the part where, we submitted the wrong deck. Take the Stormbringer quick, transform it into Token Shaman.
I'm somewhat unconvinced that is the correct pick. I was looking, I think, a bit more heavily at Hagatha's scheme. I get what they're thinking, right? It's that we're going to be ahead on board. We don't want to go for the line of play of making a big board and then picking a board clear. But I think in this matchup, there's enough back and forth that you could have found a good way to make just a 2 or 3 damage Hagatha's scheme worth it. Whereas this Stormbringer looks to me like it might be quite a while before you're getting anything good out of it.
Yeah, they certainly considered it pretty strongly there, and I can definitely see the merits of it. And now they're going to wish that... No, they're just going to not wish anything. They're going to wish they weren't playing the game. They are going to be able to do their own hair evolve stuff, but obviously they're going to lose out on this tempo, which is huge. Things!
Wow.
I didn't expect to see a 5-1 Wolf Rider in there.
Pretty good. That is pretty good.
A juicy evolve.
Obviously, it's a little bit results oriented, and I guess the Hagatha scheme wouldn't have actually been that good quite yet. But it's I think just indicative that Torf maybe should have gone for a slightly more reactive option off of the spell offered there. But it's not like he is left high and dry now. He has a lot of very powerful options, most likely in the form of Lackey Hair Mogu Evolve.
Yep, the key thing here, obviously there's no Bloodlust, so although it looks grim, it's not quite as grim as it is against the token version of the deck, where you're just dead next turn.
Correct.
And also no Stormbringers, meaning that it's not quite as terrifying, leaving your opponent's board up. Obviously, this is terrifying. It's a huge amount of damage. But just not quite as terrifying is where I'm going with that. But this needs to be good. The Mogu can't actually kill anything apart from the totem, right?
Yeah. And I think you're happy to take that. It's probably the highest priority target. That is a little underwhelming, I think it's fair to say. The 4-drops and 2-drop are all good, but you're a little bit underwhelmed by the...
Yeah, it's not bad, it just needed to be superb.
It's fine, yeah, it's pretty good. We were really just looking there for, Batterhead or Grommash Hellscream, Tyrion, one of the premium 8-drops there.
Yeah, because if this board could have survived and it's not going to because of how that worked out, then the Stormbringer would have looked really juicy. So a Tyrion or something like that just to hold it all up. But now, the benefits of having tempo in Hearthstone, I don't think will be revealed more clearly than this next turn, where you just get to pick what you want to kill and how you want to kill it, with fairly equal boards.
Absolutely, and especially when you factor in the Sandstorm Elemental, this is looking very, very nice.
It shows how hard it is to beat through, though. You're having to take care of this board.
Yeah. Kind of a tough situation there. Yeah, okay. That mind control tech helps turn things around, because I was going to be a little bit I told you so there, in just bringing it back again to the point that the Hagatha scheme would have been fantastic here to be able to swing things back in Torf's favour, especially with... yeah, exactly. I was going to say, especially with the totem.
So play the 1/1s, trade into the 1/1, double mind control tech, and then kill something with your water elemental. I think.
Yep.
Obviously, a lot of double checking goes on, especially if they're not in the same room. Makes it a lot harder to. It's not hard to communicate, but it's just that more difficult.
You're saying that over some video communication devices there is a short amount of lag, Lorinda? Because I wouldn't disagree with you if you did say that.
It does seem to be the case.
It's possible that people can talk over each other.
Been known.
When they're communicating.
Yeah, with online communication devices. The thing. We're so funny.
Aren't we just? And now, with board control finally going back to Torf here, it is left to Empenizado to try and mop things up here, which he could do a pretty good job of, swing things back in his favour pretty nicely, especially with these few juicy lackeys.
Yeah. And of course, they don't know about the Stormbringer, so they will keep the board under control naturally, so they shouldn't walk into anything horrible, but... Oh, this is also interesting because the way they played the last turn has sort of lured Mexico into thinking there's no mind control tech. It seemed like quite an obvious play last turn to just steal 2 minions.
Right.
And now they can do it this turn instead. If they so desire. But they do have a million other options.
Oh, very powerful options gained off the 2 drops there in the form of Khadgar and the Lost Spirit. It does just make it a little bit harder for Torf to be able to respond effectively without buffing up all the, attack from Empenizado's side of the board. But he can just go with a nice mind control tech anyway.
He could also go with both mind control techs. I know you can get the same effect by using your hero power, but one of them doesn't put the extra 3/3 into play. So that was also worth consideration.
Yeah, I think I like hero power anyway, just because you can make use of 1 mana pretty.
Yeah, and you've got time.
Or he can trade away the rat here and then go for 4 2-drops. Or I suppose 3 because of board space.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. Actually, I'd probably rather see the Ethereal Lackey held because it's so good with the Stormbringer.
Yeah, they're just going to make all this because they've got the Stormbringer ready.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I preferred the Witchy Lackey there because you could turn your Novice Engineer into a 4-drop instead of making a few 2-drops. Whereas, like I said, on turn 9, being able to go Hero Power, Faceless Lackey, plus Stormbringer is very powerful. Speaking
oh
of
my goodness. Oh wow, it's going to be so tempting to them. Like Rain of Toads catches the eye as the obvious thing.
I'm thinking Zap. I'm thinking just like the cheapest thing they can get because they have Shudderwock and all this stuff in hand. They just need to play cards out of their hand.
It's really tough because they don't know about the opposing Stormbringer, which makes it harder. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're just going
true.
to dump stuff. I like this. I do like it. And now you've got to move because time will start to burn. Yeah. Panzano looking quite nervous, which is interesting to me because he's played a significant amount of tournaments. But he's got Impact breathing over his shoulder.
That'd make any of us nervous, I think.
And obviously, Hero Power, Mind Control Tech, and possibly even Bog Slosh it back and do it again if they try and go wide with this board. They've set out their stall to show you what they're doing. They're obviously trying to go wide.
Yeah.
But there's so many other choices. I think at this point now, the Stormbringer is a red herring. We can just forget that's there for some time.
I agree. Yeah, okay, I guess I agree.
You remember it's there, you fight for board, and then you win with it by accident, rather than forcing it.
They could just go for 4 legendaries right now with Totemic Smash and the Witchy Lackey. That's not that bad. I agree it's probably not the play, but it's definitely a consideration, I would argue.
That's what they're going to.
Wow,
Here
okay.
he comes. 3 versus 2. They're good cards.
Oh.
And they've got the Wasp in hand, the Bog Slosher in hand as well for the Shuttlewalk. That will be dead.
And they can bounce the Shuttlewalk.
Exactly.
Oh. Insane. Completely insane. All right, good play there. I was thinking they wouldn't go for it because they traded away the Novice Engineer instead of making another legendary. But I guess the reason they did that was actually deliberately to play around Mind Control Tech.
Yeah.
So the more I think about it, the more I think this was probably a good play and probably executed in the best way possible.
Yeah, very, very tidy stuff. Oh. They've done really well to hold in here as well.
Very well.
And it's not over yet because they've got
it's
so many cards and there's only a 7/7. The health totals have hardly been touched. It's so different to the other version of Shaman, where you're just whacking each other in the face a lot of the time because you've got the control of the game. And then someone bloodlusts and it ends.
Pretty juicy looking Ysera Awakens though.
Oh yeah.
If Tor can find a mutate or an evolve to go along with that off of this Novice Engineer, that is looking insane. Alright, not quite.
Tried.
So in that case, are we looking at Sandstorm Elemental is okay. Obviously leaves up a 4/3, which is much less than ideal.
This is so weird because...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, they both have so many cards in hand. But they've used all the good stuff apart from the obvious Shudderwock. And now they're down to not quite the bare bones, but they're both having to really fiddle around to make things happen out there.
What do they even bounce here? Do they bounce the Novice or the Sandstorm? Both were good.
Sandstorm, apparently.
Weird turn. Very, very tough turn.
Yeah, and something we harped on about a bit yesterday, but it's going to matter in this match, is time management on the turns. And that has to favour the 2 players sat in the same room. Let's see if the Shudderwock can get things done.
Yeah, got a Sandstorm loaded in there, ready to go, as we just saw, to clear off most of the board.
Own goal.
Did it just generate an evolve there?
Gone are the days when I used to know what the battle cries were on a Shudderwock. Spoilers, I never did.
2 life drinkers burned there, which is pretty bad for Empedorzado because that means that he's obviously drastically limited on the amount of health he has at his disposal. So much so that he doesn't even play the Evolve here.
There's 7 cards in the deck, and they've used a Shudderwock. And they haven't got a hand that does anything. This is kind of it.
Was that really better to go for, like, play the 1-drop and double mutate instead of just going with the Evolve? Because Evolve gave a 10-drop as well as a couple of 4-drops. And yes, you have to tank 3 damage. I guess it really is just the fact that he got the life drinkers off the top, so he knows that he has that much less health to work with, and therefore has to just be so conservative with his life total.
Yeah, I wonder if they've read into what the Asura card is as well. Because a lot of legendaries die to Asura Awakens.
It's true. Very true.
Legendary,
I
mean, a lot of big cards.
Yeah. Maybe you're right.
So maybe they're holding it to get the Awakens out of their hand to kill the Shudderwock, and then... Maybe not, but there's so many considerations here.
There really are. Very, very difficult turn.
And this is another difficult turn the other way. You get one chance to use this Barista, obviously, because that's how one card works. So you want to make sure it's a good one, especially in what is turning out into a value grind like this.
Again, holding off of the mind control tech in what seemed like a pretty decent position to throw it down. Torf is instead valuing, clearing things off, developing his board, and saving that MCT.
Yep, and here's probably why.
Ooh. Yeah, that'll definitely do. I mean, well, first of all, he just wins unless a taunt is generated here.
That's a taunt that has been generated. One problem solved. And they must be seriously tempted not to evolve again. In fact, they won't evolve again.
Well, they can because they've got the Titanic Lackey.
Sure.
Whoa! The Titanic Lackey's in hand, but they got Venture Co-Mercenary. So they can't play it, so they're dead.
Oh my goodness!
That is a punish the likes of which I don't think I've ever seen.
That is grim.
Is their downfall there in the end of that matchup, thinking they can get a better evolve there, and in the end, they're just denied by the Merc.
That's made you so happy and cheerful.
I just never even thought about that. Venture Code very rarely comes up.
No, of course. I mean, there's so many to choose from as well. You don't remember every single interaction, and you've played a lot of Evolve.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to remember it, most people are not going to remember it. And even if you do remember it, like, what's the chances?
Right, exactly.
Pretty small.
It's incredibly unlikely. And I think on average it probably was the best play because their highest chance to victory, I think, was not grinding. It was hitting lethal on the next turn. And upgrading again when they had a 0 attack 4-cost minion is probably the best way to do that. But they were met with the ultimate punish and lost because of it.
N'Zoth Priest.
What was that, sorry?
N'Zoth Priest, yeah. I don't know, I just thought I'd try a different way of saying resurrect.
Trying to spice up the marriage a bit, eh, Neil?
Yeah, just try a few new things. So, Resurrect Priest can just get absolutely blown out here.
It can. That is the way we saw it go earlier today, where I believe it was Canada that took the win against Argentina in this exact matchup. Where it did look fairly favoured. The Resurrect Priest in that particular matchup did not hit a very good amount of damage or pressure later on in the game. But that really wasn't the biggest concern. It was more just about trying to hit enough removal to deny the Shaman the consistent damages. Consistent boards full of damage.
Yeah, it almost feels like this could be the best deck in a meta that isn't this one, because the spot removal is really, really powerful, but the wide removal just isn't up to that much. Obviously, later on it becomes insane. as soon as you get past the first mass hysteria and the plague of death and all that. But early on, killing 1 minion at a time is all you've got, and it's not great.
I would like to amend an earlier statement I made. I said I liked the second evolve despite the fact they got punished, but Tyler agrees with that in chat, so I would like to reverse my opinion. I think it was wrong.
Brilliant. I mean, that's as good a reason as I can think of.
Empanizado clearly here, I think, setting up for, at the very least, the option of evolve on the following turn, even if it doesn't end up going that way, which I think is probably pretty smart. If he doesn't want to go for the evolve, doesn't have to, could just follow up with the Witchwood Piper, and it just smooths out his curve in a more aggressive fashion.
Yeah, Witchwood Piper is still a bit of a mystery to me in this deck. I get it. It's useful, but it's still a really bizarre card just to be floating around in there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've heard from the horse's mouth, from Casey, who innovated this tech, I believe, along with Bunny Hopper, a while ago, him saying he doesn't actually like it that much anymore. It's kind of the problem with those players is that Bunny and Casey are so well respected that as soon as they do anything, everyone just assumes it's right, even though, you know, they're only testing it. They're not certain that it's correct.
Yeah. I used to love the way that Flamingo Bums would deliberately take a deck and put in one really trollish card that looks vaguely possible, and then tweet it out, and then wait for Navi to run into it and just say, "This guy's playing the meme." It would happen so often.
That is
a totally useless card.
That's what I was talking about with Hunter Race. That's like his long game plan. Is he deliberately tanks a tournament with bad decks, and then everyone thinks they're good because he's Hunter Race, and then wins the next one.
When's that going to happen? He hasn't tanked a tournament in about 3 years.
It's true. It's like, for example, with the combo priest that he plays. Who knows? Maybe the Born Samdi was a meme the entire time. Everyone was playing his exact list in Grandmasters for like 4 weeks straight. And maybe he's just planting the seeds along the way so that eventually he can rip it out and call everyone an idiot.
That'd be so great. It wouldn't be great for us because we'd fall into it and we'd look incredibly silly, but we're used to it.
I am.
So not even a mass hysteria here.
Yeah, I'm well used to Hunter Race making me look like an idiot in public.
In public now, he's moved up.
I didn't see him dump humiliating
your Discord in private.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great little interaction.
Speaking of great little interactions, I don't have any. I wanted to transition that, but I have nothing to say. Water Bearer heals you when you play it. That's a fun interaction.
Thanks, man.
Shut up.
That's just really helped me so much. So the only problem with Evolve, in theory, would be Mass Hysteria. It does tend to do well because minions tend to have more health and attack these days, which means they stick around, which means they die in a Mass Hysteria match. Weirdly.
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm surprised to see the Witchwood Piper because it makes sense, right? You know, 4 mana, you play your 4 mana guide, that makes sense. But I think to an extent I was expecting a slightly greedier line to come down from Empanizado where he could have played out, say, the Sandstorm on this turn and then gone for Hero Power plus the Witchwood Piper in the next couple of turns. But I guess that was maybe just a little bit too slow, a bit too passive, and he wanted to just get enough value off of it now and then go Hero Power plus Sludge on the following turn.
Really setting themselves out for an incredibly long haul, though, by saving Evolve and just going for the grindy Hero Power Shudderwock game.
True.
Against Priest, that's pretty scary strategy because once you get past about turn 6, things do start to go horribly wrong for you if you're not careful. Must choose quickly. Not happening, mate.
It is a weird
Yeah, I mean,
spot because
still,
this Emperor Thaurissan is terrible. It's not good. You
yeah.
want to be hitting more important minions. It doesn't help him do any of his power curves a turn earlier, like Mass Resurrection or N'Zoth. It doesn't really help him do anything especially powerful next turn. It's just really the best thing he can play, I guess.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that do work with it, and again, he wasn't happy about it. If your opponent's going to deal with it, it's probably not going to lead to them having much of a power turn. And also, it just gets it in that res pool at some point, because you don't really want to be keeping it around in your hand for too long. Just because you've got nothing else useful to do. To elaborate.
Very nice.
He's actually doing the
aggressive push
secondary
onto
job
the
of just
board.
killing a minion here.
Yeah, true.
It's a sad, lonely little job, but it's all they've got.
Sorry, was that the minion or casting?
Yeah, I was just expecting that exact comment. Right, well, that's the end of the doors, and he's gone as the cast starts to descend into chaos.
Yeah, it's reaching that point already. There's nothing especially powerful that can be done by Torf. I think it's really just a case of take your beatings, which this priest deck, to be fair, is very good at. As long as it doesn't die, it has many, many ways to pull back from the jaws of defeat. And so I think quite happily here we will see Mass Hysteria plus the Convincing Infiltrator to just keep stalling out the game.
Convincing Infiltrator. I just never remember the card name. You know what I'm like with card names anyway. But it's the most awkwardly named card. Like, it can't be called Steely Man or something, can it?
Steely Man. I think that's almost taken.
Convincing Infiltrator. I mean, it's not that convincing. It just kills people on the other team. It's not really infiltrating. That's just straight up assassination.
Well, what would you call it? Killboy.
Yeah.
All right.
That sounds like a great superhero. Right, time to kill some of this.
Yeah, I'm thinking trade away some garbage. I was thinking you trade the 2-1 away and then go like Hero Power Lackey. But sure, let's trade away more of our guys. That makes some sense. I think I preferred it played slightly differently there. But, it does allow you to play the Faceless Lackey at full value, so sure.
Yeah, keeping this very full board the entire time. As cheaply as possible. Yep. Haven't faced a Cartoot yet, so going for the evolve before turn 8 instead of turn 9. Because there's a big difference there.
Yes. Whoa! Wow.
They've rolled him again.
Yeah, that might have come right on time there for Torf, because without that light bulb, we were looking at a big chunk of damage coming through, even factoring in the Shadow of Death there. Huge find for Torf, and I think it's pretty clear it has to be played on this turn. And it just smooths out the curve beautifully. We're looking at Go For It Now, Mass Hysteria on turn 9, and then N'Zoth on 10. Although I guess actually there haven't been any reborn Death Rows that have died, so you'd probably go past the Mass Hysteria on 9 and play the Cartoot Defender on 9. But either way, it smooths out the curve and allows you to be not dead.
Yeah. Just chipping away here, Mexico. One evolve down is a big deal, though. That won't be played for some time, I should think. This is my control tech. Significantly better later on after N'Zoth. Unless you think it's going to get the job done now, which it just is not.
I think the card that I'm most curious about in hand is Evolve at the moment for Empanizado, where he could go for an Evolve right now, for example, to get himself a couple of 4-drops and a 3-drop. But I half expect him to save it for exactly Shudderwock so that he can give himself a 10-drop and upgrade some of the 2-drops that are generated alongside it with the Faceless Lackey Battle Cry.
Yeah, it's pretty much what I was going to say, is that they've used one evolve. They don't want to use the second one, do they? Straight into Mesovex? Because there's so many things that could be dealt with here. And they haven't got a follow-up. If this board gets blown up...
So now on three consecutive evolves, they've hit Ventrico into Mana Wraith.
Let's see the funny side as well. Yeah, I thought that maybe they would wait because no follow-up, but they'll be happy with that roll to some degree. They won't be happy to see this, but they know it's coming.
That'll do. That'll do very nicely.
Can I join your petition, by the way, to have Mass Resurrection and Plague of Death? One of them have to change their picture.
They have to. They look literally identical. Like 9 mana, golden splodge. That's all I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the king of 4-drops coming in very, very useful here. Of course, in Get the name of the card.
Mr.
What is
Shaw.
happening to my book?
Houndmaster Shaw.
Mr. Shaw, yes, Houndmaster Shaw, good lord. Yeah, Houndmaster Shaw coming in very hot here for Empanizado to be able to clear off the board, whilst being able to push a little bit of damage to face as well.
To be fair, nobody's played it in like a year.
That's true.
It wasn't stable for the longest time, obviously.
That was scary. Oh, can you imagine Duskfall and Aviana versus Res Priest? That's like the absolute nightmare. They'd play a 0 mana N'Zoth.
Still not that much in the N'Zoth pool.
I think that's going to change quite rapidly though, because there's already 2 convincing infiltrators, which is not bad.
Yeah.
I think on this turn we're very likely to see either Light Bomb plus Kartut, or I guess more likely just Shadow Word Death plus Kartut. And then you can see N'Zoth plus Seance on the same turn, a turn after that. Which is, dare I say...
Yeah, and then things start. Yeah, it's game over, other than we'll allow for Shudderwock MC Tech to have some say in the matter.
Right.
If that all comes off. Not quite there yet. Because this Light Bomb is far from fun. Because if you play Light Bomb Kartut, all of the Shudderwock generated nonsense is going to have... Well, the Shudderwock is going to have Charge or Rush, which is the same thing when you're trying to take down a defender.
Yeah. I agree with everything I'm seeing. There was obviously some merit to go for Light Bomb over Shadow of Death, because it means that the Houndmaster Shaw would have to trade evenly into the Kartut defender, but I think that's probably not quite good enough of a reason.
Such a timely mutate. I think they're going to Shudderwock anyway, but this just seals the decision.
100%.
And now things will happen. That's all I can say about this. It's like being used to cast Yogg. It's like you just gave up after a while and watched it.
Just watch. It's like when you're a supply teacher and you just kind of given up. You're like, right, just watch this video.
So, holding back the Light Bomb's looking quite good.
The Immortal Prelate is probably a bit of a low roll. It does give you, obviously, the ability to not have to worry about fatigue, but I think I would rather not have to draw a 1/3. And
yeah, you have
fatigue just doesn't matter anyway.
In the deck.
Yeah. But here we go. Now power plays can really start coming through. Probably a Plague of Death first, and then start letting rip with the N'Zoth nonsense.
Yeah, Golden Splodge just to clear up the board.
I must consider.
They do basically never die to playing N'Zoth here. Which is what they'll be considering. Just N'Zoth Seance and see what happens. Let your opponents use up some of their resources killing off your board, and then some more resources repopulating, and then just blow it all up. It's definitely tempting.
It does feel to me to be a surprisingly close game. Like, I think I'll probably put Torf at a fair advantage, like probably 60% to win from here. But maybe slightly higher. But Empanizado has some really good shots at taking this game. If you can get a couple of good evolves or a couple of good steals with the mind control tech, then he can turn this around.
Yeah, generate a Bloodlust at some point would be nice.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have minions all the time. It's just that those minions aren't very big. And Mexico have just had a huge board for the entire game whilst maintaining a full hand. I know that's what the deck does, but just watching it in action is quite beautiful, really.
It's always just quite impressive, isn't it? Ooh, this is a tough choice. These are 3 good spells, I would say, here.
Yeah, I think you don't take the Voodoo, personally.
Okay. I can agree
because I
with
don't
that.
think there's much big stuff left to play it on.
Yep, okay.
So Scheme will enable you to clear an Azoth board later on. Oh, you do take the Voodoo,
Wow.
okay. Guess they've got one
I think I
Mogu
was
left.
leaning towards Wind Fury. I wanted to have the
So was
surprise factor. Because I think this game is
Yeah.
slipping out of Empanizado's fingers. So he needs to go for some kind of, like I said, the ability to surprise his opponent.
Yeah, a cheeky Wind Fury felt like my choice too. Oh, I see.
Ah!
Now
That's
I
quite clever.
understand.
That's quite clever. Is that too cute? I think that's a little bit too cute.
It might be.
I think I'd rather, even though they can do this, like a 2-drop that death rattles into a 3-drop every time you draw it is good, but they still have 15 cards in deck, and like I think I would much rather have seen a 5-drop off of the 2/2 there instead, right?
I mean, they've set their
Like-
stall. I mean, I think I agree with you, but working out why they may have done it, like they've set their stall out for the whole game just to have a wide board,
Because
and
in
having a
my opinion,
recurring.
sorry, I was going to say, in my opinion, this isn't like a super slow fatigue matchup. Like, eventually the priest will win board. They won't just fatigue you, they will kill you because they will have irreparably won board control.
Yep. And of course, we've got Caster Vision, and N'Zoth was there with the Seance. It didn't have to be.
Engaging TC-130 mental dislocator.
We made this. This army of absolute puddings taking on these monstrous defenders doesn't
Well-
look fair.
I've got my new ringtone. It is, of course, Neil Lorinda Bond saying "Army of Absolute Puddings."
Earthshock, Lightning Storm, both seem okay.
Those are both good cards, yeah. Ooh, that's... okay, Hagatha's scheme makes sense. You know they have a N'Zoth in hand. I was wondering if it was Lightning Bolt to go for more damage, but I guess the face damage route is just kind of not really a possibility anymore. You have to win back board.
Yeah. I'm just yapping because it seems so clear how it's going to pan out over the next couple of turns. It's basically exactly what you're saying. Just some board fights and the puddings end up losing. But so much removal in Mexico's hand is complicating the issue a lot.
True. And I guess this is a good time actually to address something we haven't done for a while. Question in chat: what is Global Games? To qualify for Grandmasters? No. Hearthstone Global Games is a standalone tournament where players from 48 countries have been invited. They play in pairs, teams, as you can see together with Empanizado sat next to Impact there, to try and fight for $75,000 worth of prize pool. And it's going to be played over 4 weeks of competition these first 2 weeks, of which we are in the first week, are going to be the group stages where all the teams will be cut in half. We will have 16 teams left over, and then at the end of all of that, we will be having the next stage
More
of the
group
tournament
stages.
in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, kind of more group stages. But to answer your question, no, this does not qualify to Grandmasters. It is just for the prize money and the glory for your country.
And in some ways, it's almost not quite the other way around. The best 2 players or the highest performing 2 players from each country was picked. So there's a lot of Grandmasters representing their country.
That's right.
And they are in teams of 2. Torf will be talking to Race. He's not just talking to his webcam to look cool. And as you can see, Impact is actually with Empanizado, whose name I still cannot say after all these years.
I think you got it.
Impact. Yeah.
You can't say my name right after all these years. So I don't know why you're talking about
Well, yeah, I know. I should curious about that. And I would
So
never
we're seeing
be
a
able to say
pretty
your
clear.
name.
Sorry, correct. But I was going to say that it's a pretty clear divergence of game plan here for Empanizado, where he's slowing down quite drastically on the board control route, because I think what he's trying to maneuver here is a Springer trap for Torf, where Torf will say, okay, let's go for lethal. Let's overextend onto the board to try and close things out before they can extend it too far into the late game and win with fatigue, now that they have the Immortal Prelate. And then, when he does go 2 all in on board, we'll see Empanizado go for a really big Hagatha scheme into a Lightning Storm to clear off all the Reborn minions. However, I think Torf is probably going to smell that trap before things go wrong for him.
Yes and no. I do agree that he should see something coming. It's quite hard to predict the exact Hagatha scheme nonsense.
Yeah.
I think he may avoid it by accident. As in, they're just still getting quite a lot of value as the priest. They are running out of cards, though. Okay, Nazoth is not 1 card, it's like 7 cards. But I'm just still gobsmacked at how Mexico have just taken their time and kept constant full boards.
It's just what the Quest Shaman does. It never looks oppressively powerful, but it just keeps on chugging. It's the little deck that could.
I wonder.
And not panicking has been a big key here. Oh, I shudder to think how many times you have to play test this to be this calm playing this deck. But it's a lot.
I'll agree with that. As it finally comes down to Empanizado coming to the conclusion, you know what? They're not going to overextend into this Hagatha scheme. It's not worth it. We just have to roll now, because I think correctly so. If they just play out one by one, eventually they're just going to lose to the 6 or 8 damage a turn from these remaining minions.
They're not even that far behind after they MC Tech 2 minions away.
Fair.
As long as they keep a couple of medium-sized things on the board, which they've tried to do this term, it's only one thing, obviously. You roll. It doesn't matter there's a million minions in, and Nazoth can only generate 6 friends.
Yeah.
MC Tech 2 of them away. It's not that ridiculous. And then the priest is kind of out of stuff. Can you see how many cards the priest has left, by the way? Because I can't.
Sorry, yeah, I'll look on stream because there's the little thing. It's 11.
Okay, thank you.
So a bit of a weird spot here for Torf, where he could just go for the Xerx cloning gallery for a decent play onto the board. But the problem is that will, I think, 100% summon Hakar, and that introduces an element of randomness into the game that I don't think needs to be there. He's quite decidedly in the lead, so I think he should just take it, pan out in the normal fashion, don't let anything crazy occur, and I think he'll win.
Just reminds me of The old favourite taunt druid days. Armies of taunts looking at each other, taking forever to get through. Well, Light Bomb doesn't do much. And Cloning Gallery doesn't do much. I don't think. Double checking the list to make sure I've not forgotten anything important. I really haven't.
Yeah, there's not many decks that can fatigue the Quest Shaman, or I suppose I shouldn't even say fatigue, but just run it out of resources, because they have so much generation in the deck to be able to just go and go and go and go and go. But it does finally look like it, with no more generators in hand, that Empanizado is just running out of stuff. Torf does not need much more, and he should be able to get there.
Yeah.
I must consider.
Does it looks that way? And pretty much every card in their deck, just scanning through the list, I mean, it's pretty much every card in the deck to start with either kills something or plays something threatening. So Justin choosing to take the hit first. But now that's out of the way, they can plan in almost absolute safety.
Agreed. Immortal Prelate there, once again, as a reminder, it has, what's the name of the card? Big Bad Voodoo cast upon it, so when it dies, it will summon a 3-drop. And to be fair to Empanizado and Impact, I was saying that I thought at the time it wasn't a aggressive enough of a play, I suppose you could say, or it was too cute. Like, getting a 3-drop every time isn't going to win the game. But that extra value engine that they've generated may be the difference maker. Who knows?
I mean, they played so much value and sort of careful here. They knew they couldn't kill the priest early. I mean, they gave it the obligatory attempt early on. But since then, they have just maintained this relentless value on board, and that's just playing into that strategy. Torf just looked bemused throughout the entire game. It's because he's concentrating hard, but they're not dying next turn, so this is a turn where they can afford to do some Xerexing. It's a really annoying card.
I've got to be honest, I'm a little surprised to see Xerix there. I was expecting the Light Bomb. It looked pretty good to me.
I feel like they wanted to play the Xerix, and this might be the only chance they get.
I don't think I agree with that.
Okay.
Like, I think the reasoning is that, maybe they'll see something more threatening along the way, which, fair enough, you might see a generated evolve plus hero power hair evolve. But you have another Mass Hysteria to deal with that. I think it just allows your opponent to value trade this board, and then you just have to go for another clear next turn anyway.
Because the Mutate's gone, I believe. Both evolves have definitely gone.
Sure.
So, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe that was as threatening as it's ever going to be. Shadowwalk's gone.
Yeah.
Barista's still around, I think.
I can't remember, honestly.
It's not easy.
I think you're right. I think it is still in the deck.
After watching the mirror first and then this, it makes it a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
Come on, Torf, work
Yeah,
out the Mass Hysteria quicker than this.
It looks like he's setting up for the Light Bomb, but just wants to get 1 damage to the face
Yeah.
first. Oh, my mistake again. He's really holding on to these removal pieces.
Yeah, something that I always forget is that the best control players are really good at holding onto their removal at all costs. You have to claw it out of.
I see your point. I just don't know if I necessarily agree, because wow, okay. He still is able to get a huge amount of value out of the Ziliax if he'd saved it. But either way, like you said, it's fine. Did Emperorado not want 6 hairs?
That's what I was wondering. I'm very confused what they're saving it for, which means I'm missing a card from my brain.
Me too, apparently. Like Shudderwock's been played. I guess Sludge Slurper or Desert Hare. Oh, sorry, not Desert Hare. Sludge Slurper or Cable Rat is probably what we're looking at.
Okay. Because the hairs are never going to be evolved. So
Yes,
valuing the lackeys and maybe getting a spell that changes things like Bloodlust more highly. I think the priest here can afford to just heal face and go.
I think I agree. I still think that this was a very expected outcome over the last couple of turns for Torf, and a Ziliax plus a not repentance, sorry, a Ziliax plus a penance would have been a significantly more powerful hand, but either way.
Maybe they sniffed out the barista there, because that's... I'd have liked... If you're going to light bomb this turn and you haven't sniffed out the barista, you've got to light bomb last turn. But maybe with it sitting around in hand, maybe they worked it out.
I hope you like my invention.
This thing has done work. I don't know if it's done good work, but it's definitely worked.
Yes. Wait, what? Why do they have 2 of them? Am I losing my mind here?
There was a reason. No, there was a reason. I've completely lost it. I think they evolved into a second one at some point.
Oh, okay.
I might
Really?
be wrong. I'm willing to be very wrong. This game has had so many twisty-turny things happen.
Yeah. Okay, I must have missed that.
But now the
Right.
barista doesn't draw any stuff.
That's pretty good. That seems fine. Forbidden words. Tick. Get rid of that as well.
It's only enchantments that work on the prelate, right? I'm looking
Yes.
at Bog Slosher. Okay, that's a shame.
Also, impact in chat, quite right. You know, don't want to draw into the bloods too quickly with the novice engineer. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, that part I get.
Whoa! Now the prelates are 5/7.
That's what I was
and
saying,
will
yeah.
continue to be a 5/7. Well, that's pretty sick.
Yeah. Because the wording of enchantment's a kind of bizarre one.
Yeah, but that does count.
But yeah, now they've got an actual minion that leaves behind another actual minion when it dies.
Ooh la la. First
Torf head
corrupted
just exploded,
blood
by the way.
found for Torf.
Torf saw the 5/7 was like head in hands. What is happening? Oh,
Wow. It's probably.
I don't know why
time,
we're
right?
surprised. It's in there. They've got no cards left.
6 cards
time
left
to-
in deck, 2 of which are corrupted bloods. Or is that
let me
8
just
cards
look,
left?
try and guess from the deck list what those cards are that are left. One of the cards is Hakar, which they don't need.
Right.
I don't think they need. They don't need for sure.
I think
Second
it's just
Plague
gotta
of
be
Death.
right. He should just play it. He should just play it. Like, it's Mass
Yeah.
Resurrection, I think, are the real things that he's losing. But you're just doing nothing otherwise.
Banker.
Baleful Banker. Okay. War Gear, probably the best one.
Heal yourself.
Whoa,
Death
Katrina
person.
Muerte is insane.
Yep.
Stormwind, sure. Undertaker.
Oh
Whoa.
my goodness!
Whoa.
I mean, it's exciting. I don't know how good all this is, but it's definitely things are going to happen, and they're going to
The
be good
Undertaker's
things.
Nuts. It gets like, even if it's just restore 3
Yeah.
health on a death rattle. That's very
And now the
powerful.
bloods are starting to kick in as well, even though there are those 2 prelates. or will be those 2 prelates. But because of the prelates, it's going to be the grindiest bloods you ever did see.
Correct.
In fact, there may come a time where they just leave it up on the board just to make the bloods kick in.
Yeah.
I hope you like my invention.
Here he is. Oops.
Ooh. Yeah, this is starting to look like the beginning of the end.
Yeah. That Mass Hysteria should be enough, you would think.
Little time.
Because without it, let's not forget, Torf is down to 1 card with a hodgepodge of pretty good stuff to come. Okay, this clears a lot of things. Oh! Ouch! And they haven't got a solution to this.
Sorry, what just happened?
Mass Hysteria into Nozdormu didn't happen, and Torv hasn't got another answer in his hand. Basically.
So he just has to hope he survives with Priestess of Elune now.
Correct.
Whoa!
But the bloods are really kicking in. There's a lot of bloods in that deck. But the prelates keep saving them.
Torf can survive. If he just goes Priestess of Elune, he's not dead, right? Because it's 13, 14, heals for 4 plus the hero power. So he survives 1 more turn.
Yeah, and I don't know
And he
if there's
just has to
anything
hope
else
that
left.
Empedizado dies.
There might not be anything but bloods in there. Or there might be some sneaky generator, I just don't know. Yes, it was!
Oh!
No!
They shuffle it in correctly just to give them a chance to not draw the corrupted
Yeah.
bloods off the top.
And a chance of getting Wolf Rider.
Yep.
Which would have been the most hilarious ending after how we talked about the play.
That's true, that's true.
Can they win what is probably a 1 in 11? It might be a 2 in 11. 2-0,
Wow.
never in doubt.
What an end to the game there. As Torf is able to sneak 1 turn before he dies with the Nozdormu on the board as well. A ridiculous way to end the game there. But it does put Brazil in a fantastic position.
I want to see somebody bring those Dormos to this tournament. But, oh, you guys, you like to communicate? No.
Yeah.
Argue over this, Spain. 2-0 and looking pretty good, obviously, now. And still have their warrior to win with, which should be in a good spot here. Obviously, it shouldn't beat the druid, but it's okay against the other 2.
Yes, I think
It's
up
okay
against
against
the
the rogue, anyway.
Yeah, the Shaman it's going to struggle against, but I agree. The Rogue, very nice matchup for the Warrior, so that's definitely the one they're trying to win. That would be the difficult matchup for Mexico. If they can take that, then they are looking to be in a very good spot.
But they've got to get there, and the Rogue can generate, as we saw earlier, tremendous amounts of value towards the end of the game. And so it's definitely not over. But this segment is, we're going to be back in about 3 more minutes with the conclusion of this match. See you then. Welcome back after that 3-minute break, and we are back into group number C. What are you giggling at, Derek?
Wow, that was a lot.
Brazil
In
versus
such a
Mexico.
short amount of time. Carry on.
And we have got the Warrior, which is looking good to take down one of these 3 games against the Druid, the Shaman, and the Rogue. But might not be quite plain sailing, as you pointed out beforehand. The Druid in particular is kind of a walkover for the Druid.
Yeah, I think so. The Warrior has to just win one game now for Brazil, and I think they're in a decent spot to do so. You have to be incredibly unfavored in your matchup to be unlikely to win when you're 2-0 up. But I think unless they take the win against the Rogue, it is going to be looking a little bit difficult because we have 2 traditionally terrible matchups for the for the Warrior in the Druid and the Priest, and Impact is lining things up first with the Druid, with an interesting new inclusion in the deck in Sathrovar to have a little bit of extra pressure and also extendability into the late game.
Yeah, I want to see this in action because the 9 casting cost feels prohibitive to me, and I'm trying to work out how many R's you can actually get into 1 card just to make my life absolute miserable.
Sathrovar!
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Sure, nobody else is going to abuse that over the next 2 years. But yeah, if you don't have Coin or Innovate, they are running 2 Innovates, I seem to remember. I'm just going to check now. The point being, you get
Sorry,
you get to copy Zephyris with it at some point. Is one of the key cards you can use. Right. If you've got an Innovate, you actually get to do it on the same turn, and they are running 2 Innovates.
That's a big deal. I hadn't actually thought about that before. That makes a big difference.
It also means your Innovates later on do something, which is always... It's not an issue as such. You usually find something to do with them. But It's kind of nice to be able to use them when they're dead late in the game for something actually useful.
Yeah, it's just a card that makes the Emperor Thaurissan in the deck that little bit more powerful, because like you said, Zephyris can be used with an Innovate to shuffle it back in, or you can use the Emperor Thaurissan, or I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other stuff you can do, like you can go Kun the Forgotten King and then Sathrovar to shuffle in another Kun into your deck and put another one on the board. Or of course you can have a Floop version of Sathrovar to shuffle even cheaper minions into your deck.
Yeah, I want to see just how insane it gets. When whenever you play Druid at the end game, you end up with far more stuff than you expect. Even though you know you're going to end up with a lot of stuff because it's obvious and you make it yourself, the way that Elite interacts with Flute is so insane. By the end of 2 or 3 turns, you just like, why have I got 5 Zephyrs in my hand? I don't know, but it's good.
Swipe coming down here with some pretty high degree of urgency, which I think for the most part seems correct. Mitigating card draw from the warrior is probably their highest concern, because the less cards the warrior draws, the less likely they are to have found the Hakar, which is a big deal.
Yeah, it's like the one chance the warrior has, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not the one chance, but realistically, they're too slow to beat you down, even if they get the beatdown start.
It's far and away the best shot.
I wonder.
This is super irritating. You kind of got to kill it, but it's just not efficient in the slightest.
Yeah, I think this is staying alive for a turn. I'm not going Whirlwind Innovate Mummy. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
Or what? Coin Dynamatic. Yeah, okay, sorry. That seems a bit better. I didn't see that on the left-hand side.
Yeah, it lurks in the corner of the screen. I've missed the left-hand card a time or two. Again, it's still pretty inefficient though. Just burning the coin.
Yeah. It's true. You really didn't want to use the coin there, but I think it's probably the best you got, and you have to do it really.
Yeah, you got your 2 card toots, all your Hearthstone instincts scream to wait, but that's why these are good players. They know when to go against those instincts and just play the obvious play, if you like. And again, every play looks grim because you're playing into the Oasis Surger turn, which Druid always has.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that this year's edition of Global Games is the toughest yet. I mean, that makes sense that players just will keep improving, but every team I feel like, hey, they can definitely win this. Apart from those that are actually out.
It's very much distilled down, isn't it? When you only have 2 players instead of 4, obviously some of the countries suffer in that, I think, because they have such a abundance of strong players, but there are a lot of countries that have 1 or 2 very strong players, and then it tails off quite quickly after that. And I think they benefit quite heavily from this system.
Yeah, I mean, Mexico's a good example, and France is a good example of the opposite, where they've got a very deep pool. You could pick any 2 from about 12 in France, and they'd have a world-class team.
Yeah, I think, honestly, the UK is probably another good example of that. I think, not wanting to disparage a lot of the other players, but I think after Dead Draw and Boar, it drops off fairly drastically, with Jambray being the only other real player, I'd say, who's got a close standing to them.
Yeah, Toast Monster was very good in the 4-man format. Yeah. Because he does a lot of the... I don't just mean the work with the decks, but the work on the day of keeping track of stuff and sort of keeping communication flowing and stuff like that. But yeah, the UK have 2 world-class players. Yeah. Interesting, actually. Scenarios is one of the cards you can consider keeping. You're already thinking about the end game here as Druid.
Yeah.
One of the ways to beat the warrior is just have a wall of Scenariuses, but a wall of Zephyruses is better. Like, you've got so many choices. And obviously with Saffrovar, that makes it even more. But you're already going to start accumulating on the left-hand side of your hand the cards you want to Elise the most.
Right.
And Scenarius is sometimes one of those cards. Just because they run out of brawls.
Yeah, it's a very valid way to approach the matchup. It's not like... Sorry, it's not like the Scenarius and Pressure is the only, or you could argue it's not even the primary win condition with this matchup. When you have the Sathravar in there, and all the nonsense you can do with, Sathravar, Floop, Elise the Enlightened, I think you can quite realistically expect to go infinite pretty consistently.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that's with the addition of Sathravar making that possible, I think.
Yep.
Just extra safety. Just cool, why not have extra safety? Impact not messing around.
That's right.
The fastest
Even though
turn of the group.
Yeah, the win condition may be later on worrying about infinite value, all that nonsense. Right now, the name of the game is just keep up on board and try and win earlier on if you can, because Impact can go for an ultimate win condition later on. Hakar can mess that up, so he does want to go a little bit quicker to just keep the pressure on and try and win the game before he even has to worry about Sathravar.
Yeah, why even put yourself under the pressure?
Yeah.
The team dynamic's pretty great. Like, Panazado's basically just going to say things when things are wrong, and Impact's going to drive the rest of the time, by the look of it. Because even when Panazado was driving, Impact was on doing the talking.
That's fair. Yeah, it did seem like that.
But he's the experienced one. I mean, Panazado has got good experience in Hearthstone in big events. Impact, I think all the people who are regular on the tour in 2017 just have that extra air of real comfortableness in tournaments.
I agree.
They play so much Hearthstone.
Yeah, Empanizado, I mean, his story of his promotion to Grandmasters this year is honestly quite a touching one. About how when he first qualified, I believe, to Masters Tour Vegas, he had to essentially, I think, like crowdfund the money to be able to travel there and compete in the tournament from his stream community, and then did pretty well there. You know, fueled his money to go on to the next event as well. And after all of that, was able to qualify through to Grandmasters at the end. It's a real impressive story of commitment to becoming the best in Hearthstone, despite hardships you have along the way.
Yeah, and good friends who probably feel really, really good that they bothered right now as well.
Big time. Big time.
You know, that's superb. It is a fantastic story. They've been rewarded with the result, so is he. And Impact very nearly got to Grandmasters himself. He was never quite like in the headline race.
Yeah.
But I think if he'd won one more match, he would have been right up in there.
I think you're right. It was real close. I mean, the real big names at the end were Papa Jason, obviously Language Hacker, who was able to make it through. Torf, because he didn't qualify through to Bucharest, as you said, was dropped out at the end. But it was close. It was really close.
Well, talking of close, this one's starting to become a lot less close unless N'Zoth is drawn very soon. There is that Hakar lurking. There is only 8 cards left in the Druid deck, but there are immediate issues to deal with, which is you're taking a lot of damage and there's more to follow.
As well as Impact is getting closer and closer to that Zephyrus being activated. And, I mean, as soon as that happens, we're just looking at Bloodlust GG.
Oh.
There is the Hakar, the all-important card for Race's win condition to have even a chance. But because he's just playing it down here, instead of taking defensive actions, he's going to have to tank 11 damage minimum.
Yep. Although getting it down before Zephyrus is active means it's not going to get hexed or polymorphed or silenced or any of that nonsense. So at least it will actually do its job.
Very good point. Because
you know you're facing 6 Zephyruses later.
Right. And Zephyrus is not intelligent enough to read what the Death Rattle does, but it does know big minion with Death Rattle, give Hex. Whoa! But what Impact did there, I didn't even realize what he was going for until after it happened. He wasn't going for the play of kill or silence or transform the Hakar. He was going for overdraw the blood, and like an absolute G, he manages to do it anyway. Can you please type easy clap in chat if you're here at the moment, Impact? You absolute madman.
He will
Well,
be, I'm sure.
that is a big deal. All of a sudden, that means that Race's only way to get a Corrupted Blood into Impact's deck is with N'Zoth.
I wonder.
Yeah, and good luck doing that before you die. When I mean, they haven't even really got good remove. Okay, the Brawl has just come off the top, and the Warpath actually. But Kun into all manner of other things.
Yeah.
Emperor to set
And
it
it's
up if
just-
you want.
I just don't think it's going to be enough.
What do you do with your other 5 mana? Not anything of use. There just is no play that makes any sense.
There really is just not much of anything going on.
Drink with me, friend.
And now for Impact, he's dealt with the Corrupted Blood very, very proficiently and somewhat luckily as well, it's worth saying. So the game plan now is to transition over to maybe go for a fatigue win condition later on, or I would argue more primarily get lethal in the next few turns, because Race is showing real signs of weakness. Zephyrus ready to go. Impact should be able to win this in a couple turns.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the reaction from the players as soon as they burned the blood. If they hadn't burned it, they were able to just sit there the next few turns until they did, as long as it wasn't like the bottom card. Yeah. But as they managed it, you just win this by accident now. You can make so many mistakes from this point onwards. Believe me, I've done it, and you still win. Because it's actually really hard to get a least flute wrong.
Yes. I mean,
you can be so you can be inaccurate, but you don't get punished for being wrong.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Unless you have a very specific win condition you're trying to hit, and then you can, like with Malagos Druid. But I agree. If you're just trying to generate value, you're usually good to just play him.
Yeah.
So Zephyrus obviously
wrong,
isn't going to be offering lethal quite yet. So Impact's just got to carry on, trying to generate some value while he can.
Yeah, he's just dumping all the garbage as well. The stuff that he doesn't want to ever copy. Just to make the Elise play more pure.
I agree with everything I'm seeing. I don't think that you wanted to go for another Thaurissan with the Floop. You'd rather save that for the Elise to get a bit more value, or with the Sathravar to go infinite later on.
Yeah, and we're both talking about later on as if that's actually going to be a thing.
Fair enough.
I mean, because if it's not, then there's nothing to talk about. But yeah, they're still playing properly as if later on somehow actually happened. But realistically, it's going to be 2 turns from here, they're dead. I have no idea what Impact's talking about, but I know it's about him.
I mean, yes, probably.
What is going on? So I'm far more fascinated by the webcam than the Hearthstone at this exact moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, like
Hopefully
for Race here,
forgive me this.
what is the only play? Like, if he goes Whirlwind plus Plague of Wrath, he just doesn't have enough removal to win the game. But if he doesn't do it, he just dies. And he knows
you don't have the hope they haven't got it. Yeah.
Yep.
There's no hope they haven't got it planned when your opponent has every card in their hand.
That's right.
So you have to clear the board, and then you have to draw into possibly even Elysiana into 5 miracles.
Starfall played purely to get a card out of hand so that we can see some Elise nonsense occurring.
Your wish is my suggestion.
Okay.
If you've not seen how this works before, it's pretty silly.
It is quite silly.
What? That was an awful set of offerings, by the way.
That was pretty bad. I was kind of surprised to not see like Elise come down first. But to be fair, I've not played the South River version, and I guess that Impact has a slightly more concrete approach that he wants to try and go for.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I like to just release the best 4 or 5 cards and repeat.
Card draw coming through for Race, which is of the utmost importance if he's going to have any chance whatsoever. And he does find himself another Plague of Wrath. That's another board clear for later on. Maybe that can help him survive until he gets through to N'Zoth, because as it currently stands, his only chance of winning is N'Zoth resing the Hakar, and then Impact taking a absolute boatload of damage.
Yeah, unfortunately, Impact's going to gain about 30 armor a turn from here on in, I think. Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
He did it right. Okay, you know what, Freshka, I trust you. If he did the combo right according to you, I'm sure he did.
Yeah, this is just nutty.
This is a little bit nutty.
When I say he's going to gain 30 armor a turn, I wasn't kidding.
So how does this work now? It goes Elise, which makes an Elise floop and a Sathravar floop. And then you can go Sathravar on the Elise, which gives you an Elise in hand and another Sathravar floop. So you can actually just go infinite at that point. Yeah, it's just infinite value.
Which is a lot.
What now?
Funny thing is, like sitting here watching Race slowly but surely loses. We have seen Race win games from very bad positions. Probably not quite this bad.
Yeah.
But we have definitely cast Race more than once where we've said, why is he thinking so long? What's he doing? And then 10 minutes later, he's won the game. He just refuses to actually concede. And I think Brazil had a game go for many hours in the last HCG.
There's a chance. There's actually a chance here for Race. Like, it's starting to slip away, honestly. Like, the longer it goes on, the less likely it is to actually be a possibility. But there's some semblance of hope here.
Yeah. Yeah, for a start, your opponents are playing a deck that they are capable of messing up, except we know that this is right in Impact's wheelhouse.
I'm pretty sure there was no difference. There was like literally no difference as to whether you play the Innovate before or after there. So, whatever. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But how many times are we going to hear the League of Explorers jingle?
How many times are we going to see Kun the Forgotten King be played in a turn? This is absurd. Oh, this looks fun. I actually want to try this. I haven't seen the full Sathravar Druid combo. This is disgusting.
Yeah. As long as you want the League of Explorers music in your head for a month, I say go for it. Now, if Impact has a heart here, he will actually play 1 million cards before winning next turn.
Oh, you know he's going to...
And Raze has a heart. He's making us wait even longer, which is cool.
You know he had to do it to him. Just look at this! Whoa!
30 armor a turn. Wise man
There we
said.
go. Okay, Sathravar has finally been deleted.
Make it stop.
What?
Oh my
This
goodness.
is so illegal. Oh my god. Whoa.
They're on 102 health.
He has 5 mana left over, by the way, in case you were wondering.
Ran out of board space. So all Race has to do is get to 1 million armor and board lock Impact to stop this nonsense.
Jesus. This is like 700 kings we've had already this game that have risen again. And finally, Race gives it up. Neil's a broken man.
Oh, I'm back
we
on
don't know
Cameron.
what's going on it.
2-1! In a
There we
perfectly
go.
sensible game of Hearthstone.
Yeah.
And that
Very nicely done
is
there
why you don't
by,
care about scenarios early on.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty curious to know how widely known that Sathravar Druid deck is, because I feel like usually I'm fairly abreast of whatever the top decks are, but I hadn't really seen this particular build so far. Partly because all my favorite streamers are playing Battlegrounds instead of streaming ladder like they're supposed to do.
Yes.
But I'm quite curious to see whether that is an impact tech or whether he got the list from someone else. But either way, it is a very, very cool build of the deck. And as we can clearly see there, has almost a 100% lock win against Warriors, not considering Hakar. If you are able to deal with Hakar in any way, you just win, which Impact did very deftly.
Yeah, I was sure it was multi-build Zephyrs, which is how I just naturally win that build. And I had looked through the build. I think there's more than one team submitted it, so maybe it's a fairly well-known thing, but I'm not sure either. Like you say, because no one's actually streaming regular Hearthstone right now because everyone's addicted to Battlegrounds. There's been fewer decks on show, which has made this all the more entertaining.
Oh, I just saw in chat Freshka actually made the deck, so shout out to Freshka. That is a cool deck.
Excellent.
Impact taking a little snooze in the middle of the game, a little siesta, and probably correctly so. As this could be another long one. This is the more standard Temper Rogue as opposed to the Nazoth Rogue that we saw earlier on today from Argentina. Which is a much worse matchup against the Warrior. I think we can both agree. This is, I think, the weak link for Impact. Although, with the Shark version of the deck, I'd say it's still not that bad of a matchup at all. Just slightly update.
As always, I said this to you yesterday, getting sensible assessments of anything from anyone who plays Rogue has always been impossible in Hearthstone.
True.
Because they just always tell you their deck is the best. And it still applies in Conquest formats. If one of their decks is Rogue, they will tell you they have the best Rogue deck ever. And as we established yesterday, that is just not true because they all have different decks.
It is agreed. Impossible to get a sensible opinion out of a Rogue player. And this comes from a Rogue player.
I know. You're where I get my source from. No, I do think that it's Warrior favoured, but the Rogue can just do obscene things. It can last if it's sensible and get a lot of late game value. It nearly happened earlier in a match that I was sort of half asleep thinking the game was over. Yeah. And they came within 4 damage of actually winning, and different roles would have given them the win.
Yeah, the real problem I've seen with this deck so far on the last couple of days of Global Games has been either the Togwaggle coming without the lackeys, or the lackeys coming without the Togwaggle. So for Impact here, if he's able to find the Togwaggle in any kind of a timely fashion, I think he's going to be in a very strong spot to win the game.
Oof. Let's see. Raze does have a fairly good board occupation hand, which is what you want here. Just get stuff down and going. But Impact's livened up after that win. He was sort of a little bit slouched and slumped, and now he's bouncy.
Ready to go. Ready to play some Rogue. I really like to play the Spirit the Shark here. You sometimes want to save it for a little bit later against Warrior to get more value, but I think given that he's got an Umbrella against the Dynamatic in the vast majority of instances here, I really like getting it down now so that he can just guarantee a bit of value in the next turn.
Yeah, and especially as, I mean, first of all, you've got 2 of them, and secondly, this hand is going nowhere. It's like an emergency. An early emergency, but an emergency nonetheless, because if you lose the board early to the Warrior, you're just never winning. So get some cards in your hand that aren't lackeys. Actually try and put something on the board that looks sort of scary.
Yeah.
And then use your second one like we saw earlier for a last gasp, 1,000,000 damage, and hope for the best. But for that to work, your opponent has got to be down low health beforehand. Well, not low, but I can't remember exactly how high it was earlier. It looked like sort of mid-20s damage at the end of the game.
I hope you like my invention.
Drawing cards, first of all. I agree. Let's find that Togwaggle and work some magic with it. And Shadow Step and Edwin found. This is going to be 4 cards drawn. An Edwin that's like, I don't even know, like large. 20 something at this point. Very large.
Yeah, it's large enough that you don't have to panic about making it larger. You just play the big Edwin.
Oh, is he going to keep drawing? Let's go. Let's keep drawing. Find that Togwaggle. That's the win condition at the moment, I think.
He may just Shadow Step it to draw again next turn and then drop the Edwin.
True. Good point. He might even Shadow Step the Shark, actually, weirdly enough.
Okay, that makes more sense. Actually, that does make a lot of sense to me. And then just find more stuff with the Shark. No,
Right.
just go for maximum Edwin.
The Brotherhood shall prevail.
Absolutely giganormous.
That's a spicy meatball. I'll give you that. A
This makes
22-22.
Brawl interesting.
Yeah, we're probably going to end up seeing Plague of Wrath instead. Just because
Oh,
you can go
yes.
trade with the 1/2 Acolyte and then kill off the Shark as well.
Yeah.
Probably. I think it's worth it, just to make sure that nothing
you're
can
right.
go wrong.
Actually, you don't want a 20% chance of losing to this thing.
That's right.
Because if that hits you, you lose.
Yes, you just lose the game.
Yep. But the downside of this play, and it's not a downside, it's what they forced you to do, is you miss a go.
Which is
So
great
now all
news
those
for the
cards,
pro.
yes, all the cards they drew can be put to very early operation.
Ooh, wow. Absolute value city here for Impact. He just needs to start getting rid of some cards. He has too much in hand at the moment.
Yeah, you don't want to burn the Togwaggle. That would not work too well.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Plague of Death is very interesting because there aren't many answers to a Hakar. This is one of them, though. And although Impact's primary game plan is to go for a more aggressive approach and try and close out the game with damage, it may be the case that he tries to get a Togwaggle, generate a whole bunch of value, maybe even try and generate a Togwaggle scheme off of this Ethereal Lackey, and then go from there, in which case destroying the Hakar could be incredibly useful, or maybe I'm getting too ahead of myself, it's just an answer to a big Nazoth.
It's both. That's great.
Sure.
You've got the Saps for Hakar as one thing, as long as you keep the armor below 7, sorry.
Yeah.
But you've also got backup plan of just silence everything and start again, because we do see the Rogue does just keep the hand size very high, or if it drops, it builds back up high, more to the point. Probably one of the better Emperors we've seen all day. But it's going to be dealt with so easily. This is where Vendetta does so much. This damage is going to start rolling in now.
Yeah, I love this from Impact. Nice and decisive. Get the damage through. Get the cards out of hand. All he needs to do is push, prioritize damage as much as possible. And that's 100% what he's done here.
I don't like not trading with a novice there, though.
Really?
Instead of the weapon. Yeah, because Brawl is not fun here. And you'd much rather not have the 1-1 in the
enough.
pool, I feel.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's true. And I guess board space is like... Impact has a bunch of minions anyway, and he might even want more board space next turn.
Yeah. So I'd rather have
Okay,
the dagger up or base than that.
Yeah, I just about agree. I think it's pretty close there.
Wow.
So what are we looking at? Warpath Mummy is able to clear off a
What now?
decent amount of stuff, but not loads actually.
Yeah, this 7 to the face is going to be scary, so I want to mummy that.
Warpath. Does he have to go
Ouch.
for the 1-mana Warpath? Or I guess he can exchange the color. Okay, this seems fine. I'm on board.
Yeah, another turn that Race really wouldn't have wanted to have to go through, though. That's 2 in a row. Or 2 out of the
That's
last 3. Early using your Plague is no fun, and now just burning coins and warpaths and stuff just isn't fun.
Yeah.
But it did get the job done.
Whoa! Okay,
Another big boy.
that is the best boy to get there. The Restless Mummy and the Colossus of the Moon are like the 2 best cards you could generate there. a very, very strong Pharaoh Cat there.
Yeah. Faircat's just good. Now Ray's wondering, if I get a developing turn, this is great, but he knows that it's going to get sapped.
That's right.
There's like an 80% chance, no exaggeration, there's at least one sap in hand at this point. And you can't afford to lose 4 mana, basically. 6 versus 2. Against Rogue at this point, because they will just start really hurting you.
Face me, you adult amateur.
How much is this worth to you?
Sure. It's not Togwaggle. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
Although I think, honestly, at this point, Impact may even have just diverted from even caring about Togwaggle that much. Like, his hand is just looking so powerful.
Yeah, fiddling around with the novice engineers, forgetting the 22-22 Edwin, which is obviously a big deal, has really made a difference to this game.
Mummy to clear things off. Okay, makes sense. Then let's discover some cards. Or generate them. Same thing.
It's actually one of the unseen skills of this deck, of which there are many, and Rogue is hard, is just keeping the hand size at manageable levels.
True.
Because you need all this value, but you've got to make space for all this value.
One pretty good, one pretty bad outcome there.
Yeah. Yeah, Warrior gives quite a lot of bad outcomes because the cards are so used only by Warrior, whatever that word is.
Yeah. Only draws one card there off the Swashbuckler to in order to not overdraw a card. I was just quite surprised there by the order lull to not get the Dire Wolf first to buff the Pharaoh Cat. It's quite funny.
Yeah, Impact raised an eyebrow to it as well. That would have been actually quite tasty.
Ugh, strict misplay there.
Total difference in characters in the Mexican team as well. Look how Impact is still keeping manual notes as well. Because that's what I do.
Of course you do.
Don't say.
Not saying anything.
Oh, more removal being sucked out. This is a horrible feeling when you're the Warrior and all your removal is going and your opponent's just sat there on 9 cards.
It's quite a nice play though to refill the hand. If you were worried about running out of resources, this is a great diversion to refill it because he does leave up a 3-1 Blink box, which is, you know, annoying. You definitely would rather get that out of the way, but I think drawing the cards now while he has the opportunity is definitely the more important play to make. Lightning Bolt, more damage. Like it.
Do you realise this Shield Slam's active? Headcrack's kind of useful, but...
Headcrack is useful, but Shadow of Death could be insane.
This amuses me immensely. Race activating the Shield Slam for there. Obviously nothing he could do or know that was going to happen. But it's so nice just to empty that card space, let alone killing the Harrison. Because that was just going to sit there all game and be a clutter otherwise.
Oh my god, imagine if he can get Colossus of the Moon sticking into Shadow of Death.
Okay.
It's not that ridiculous to happen, actually. It's really hard to get rid of.
Yeah, especially when the amount of things he's already got rid of. If that makes any sense. Like, Ray's been getting through removal really quickly in this game.
One thing that I was a little bit surprised to see, to be perfectly honest, is the Lackey being played at all there, actually, because Impact had made a pretty pointed decision to not play it felt like, on the previous turns, even with the Shark in play. And my thinking for that was, Togwag. You can play it as soon as you draw it with the lackey. But it seems like he is not all too concerned about that. Granted, he does have 10 cards left in the deck, so once he finds Togwaggle, he has a pretty good chance of finding the second rat or the second miscreant as well.
Yeah. Sottle, if you're still watching, here's a reminder of patron days. Just sit there and wait while Berserker does its thing.
Whoa, the big papa himself.
It's like, will it survive? That's the question. Because if it survives, like you say, the Shadow of Death is just absolutely ridiculous. Oof. Shield blocking hand as well, so Boom does it too. The stress of playing this on the other side, like when you're waiting to see if your silly but game-winning combo was going to work. The only words being said in Mexico right now are no shield slam, no shield slam, no shield slam.
I mean, yeah, I guess that is just enough to kill it off, actually. Oh no, wait, it's not, because the Divine Shield.
Of course,
So
yeah.
it needs to stay alive, which means the Shadow of Death is able to cast on Colossus of the Moon. 3 more of them shuffled into the deck. That has to be GG. You just don't beat that.
You don't. Because the warrior does tread a fine line with the health total. I don't speak.
Race. Save your anger. Save your anger, because if you thought that the shuffling into the deck was bad, wait till you see it, Dr. Bum.
And just in case you ever get the board, there's the Plague of Wrath anyway. They've just basically taken the best card from every control deck, invented a janky combo that makes an unkillable 10-10 3 times. And they're going to bounce anything you play.
Oh man.
I want to play this deck, the one that exactly the Impact is used after all the effects this game. And you just know he's loving it.
Oh man, he's having the time of his life. Look at him.
Not just because he's winning, but Impact in particular, of pretty much every player out there, loves this sort of nonsense.
Just look at him. He's such a degenerate. Just like, yeah, I'm destroying my opponent. This is unfair.
With nonsense. But you like that, Impact Asano? Well, I did it. I helped you. But do you like it? Do you like what I did? But I've been helping you. Yeah, but what I did, it's great, right? I think that's important as well when you have a teammate. See, when you're winning, it's easier. But just to keep spirits high, whether you're winning or losing, because it's so much easier to play when your partner's having fun.
Yeah.
And I'm having fun just watching. I've got to admit, I love watching Race play Hearthstone, but this is too fun.
Oh man, it is just filthy. Absolutely filthy.
Oh, how many 10 mana things has Impact cast in the last like 20 turns? You count the last game as well.
This is just where, like, Rogue has reached critical mass here, where it just can't lose. Like, the things it's doing are just too ridiculously powerful. Because Rogue does one of two things. It either draws all the good cards and, you know, plays them well, like Impact did, and therefore reaches impossible to lose to value levels, or it just misses all the card drawing and dies.
Yeah, and sometimes it just draws, like, sometimes the bounce spells. There's a lot of them, so you're allowed to get, sorry, the steal spells. You're allowed to get good stuff, but sometimes they just completely whiff, especially against Warrior.
Yeah.
But these haven't whiffed. These have all just fit together nicely. Even the shield slam was absolutely perfect. See what I did, Em? You see? You see what we did? You see what we did here?
Yeah?
We made this. I'm trying desperately to take Race's turn seriously, but I can't because there's so many 10-10s happening.
Yeah, it's really just praying that the cartridge defender can live here.
And Leroy Jenkins. Is it enough?
I think that's quite easily GG. Leroy plus lightning bolt. 13, 19, 22. Yeah, that's lethal.
I was trying to go through the defender with the lightning bolt and stuff and still win.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to just sap it like any old normal person would. 2-all. And Mexico
Brutal
won
loss
the one
there.
we thought was the hardest.
Yeah, brutal loss for Race. Like, I haven't played that much of the sharp version of Rogue. I've mainly been playing the kind of the more regular tempo version of Rogue this season. But it does appear that it's probably just not that bad against Warrior. Granted, there was a lot of things that went very right there for impact along the way. But there were also a lot of things that didn't happen. He didn't hit Togwaggle at the start of the game. His Edwin was dealt with very easily. Like, the Warrior did not have that bad of a hand. And in the end, it just didn't even feel close.
Yeah, they sort of had to... The word waste is the only one that comes to mind. It's not right. They waste their shark. Like, used the shark earlier than they wanted to, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They didn't waste it in any means.
They were forced.
And now they're on to... Yeah, forced into. That's good. I like it. Now the Quest Shaman. And suddenly Mexico may have become favourites, Derek, from out of absolutely nowhere.
I think they may have done. 2-0 down, but able to spin things around. And now with what is, again, a good matchup. This is one of the premium matchups, I think, actually, for Quest Shaman. One of the main reasons you would play it over the aggro version of the deck. Because while aggro Shaman, I feel, falls quite short of being able to beat the control warriors because their removal is just too consistent, their late game is too strong, and they can just clear all your big boards. But the Quest Shaman just scales better and better the later it goes into the game.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a million miles from the deck we just saw, actually. Like Sharp, Quest, it's kind of the same thing. Cheese them out with lackeys, get value. It's a very similar sort of style. Obviously, fundamental differences that your Shark's there for 24 turns instead of 2 or 4, but just value engine again. And that boy. The Shudderwock. I think Torf's webcam has seen enough of this the last 2 games.
Of course it's the right way.
It's shielding him from the horrors he's about to experience. But to be fair to Torf, he has a very strong starting hand. The one thing you really don't want to happen in this matchup is let the Shaman run away with board control early on. Because if you allow that to happen, then they're just chipping you away piece after piece, and then you're down to 15 health before you know it, Life Drinkers have killed you. If you can secure the board early on, that gives you a chance to pressure them into the late game if you can hit N'Zoth.
Yeah, you can't take on the value engine and the board at the same time. As we saw, that's basically what happened last game.
Yeah.
They could never get hold of the board and all the crazy nonsense value took over. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just exactly the same situation. And Torf does have a hand that is conducive to getting and staying on board. There's no sap this time, so you can just plop your defenders onto the board a lot more easily.
True.
Whereas you really don't want to do that against the rogue. Taking off any way for the Acolyte to draw more than one card. And I think the key of all these people we see play against Warrior, right the way from A numbers back in Bucharest, is just the amount of patience you have to have not to get twitchy with the cards in your hand.
Do you mean... Oh, wow. Something's gone wrong there. Do you mean Allen numbers as opposed to A8365?
Yes, sorry, Allen numbers. There's too many numbers, people. Yes, Allen numbers, indeed.
We've got A numbers, Tom numbers, Allen numbers.
But yeah, the amount of patience required in terms of, I don't mean in terms of getting bored, I mean in terms of just not lobbing out all your good cards
Yeah.
straight away. I mean, example here, this Mogu has been around for a while.
Ooh, yeah, that felt a little bit indecisive, honestly, at the end there for Impact, as in he wasn't quite sure about how to approach it. And I think this is fine, honestly, because the way this works is either the board sticks, in which case he can go for a big evolve and try and win that way, or maybe he just won't even bother. Maybe he'll just hit them in the face, or it's removed and he still has a pretty decent hand to be moving forward with.
Yeah, I got the impression that he managed to totally disprove everything I was saying in one card there. Because he did have a choice, but I feel he's got confidence that he can get more. Another board like this, we saw how he did it in the mirror earlier, just kept making boards.
Yeah.
And against the priest as well. And then with the evolves being pretty lethal if this board does get dealt with, which is only really dealable with a brawl or maybe a dynamatic, I guess.
Crane numbers. That's very good.
Which
That's
amazing person managed that one?
Subtle, of course.
Oh, okay. I don't think it's funny anymore.
Joke's ruined. I hate it. But now for Impact, it is going to be the Wasp coming down, which I like a lot. I think with this hand, you want to get a double activation on the Rat a bit more urgently than you do on the Wasp. Even though in this matchup, damage to face is not to be underrated, I think this hand is getting close to being a little bit too low on value, at least until you hit Shutterlock. So I like the Wasp coming down, especially as it's also just more stats.
Yep, it's a lot of stuff to deal with. It's just going to chip away. I don't know how many times we're going to use the phrase chip away, but if you have a game where you take a sip of coffee every time someone says a phrase, that's the one for this game, I think.
Faceless Lackey here, I believe, would allow for a Mogu plus Evolve to be played on the same turn. Doesn't get it, and very possibly wouldn't have gone for it anyway, because you don't want to overextend onto the board all your good resources. But the important thing is now that Impact has a hand that was looking a little bit lackluster, and all of a sudden is looking premium. We are looking at the kind of play... Sorry, go ahead.
No, he's done nothing to get into that state.
True.
You're exactly right. The hand's premium, and all he's done is have one attempt at a board, which got brawled, and just take his time.
Yep. Because we are looking at so many different options, like double Lackey Barista next turn is possible, but honestly, what I'm looking at more heavily is something even just like Hero Power Kobold Lackey Barista, as well as anything else that's left on board. Because even just Barista on one Kobold Lackey is redonkulous amounts of damage.
It's a lot of damage. And it feels like every turn with this warrior, in all three games actually, Brazil have just had nothing convincing to play on most of the turns. They've had things that work, but right from having to Plague and Edwin, Mexico have made them use so many cards in inefficient ways.
Yeah.
And like you say, all the time building up the ridiculous, as we say, amounts of damage.
And for the moment, Impact just carrying on business as usual. Generate some spells, try and stick a board. Goes for Blazing Invocation.
Right.
Instead of Evolve.
It wasn't so much the pick, it was the speed of the pick. He knows what he's looking for. He's looking for bonus Shutterwalks.
Is that good? I feel like that might be
You
not
think
good.
so?
I think I'd rather have it Evolve. Like, there's so much stuff to do with your mana anyway. You just want to create threatening boards.
The
But
speed
either way,
of the
you know,
pick makes me think there's something he knows he can find that we've forgotten.
exactly. There are a few very, very good minions, especially Shaman minions, to get off of the Blazing Invocation. But it's not to be forgotten as well that the class weight of Discover options has been forgotten, has been removed from the game. So you don't have any more chance of getting a Shaman minion than you do a neutral minion, which I think makes it a little bit worse again. But it's not that different. It still gives you more stuff to do and generate more pressure.
I guess Evolve. It's just the speed of the pick makes me feel that Impact absolutely knows that is correct. I guess Evolve can still be brawled no matter what you evolve, whereas the double battle cry is always value.
Fair. I don't know. I feel like you have to hit some very specific ones for it to be good, because there are some really bad really bad battle cry minions.
Yeah, there are. At the moment, the Warrior is comfortably trading 1-for-1, and Dr. Boom will help keep that going for a while. But now 1 drops are killing 5 drops.
And here it is for Impact. The play I was talking about, the Lackey, Kobold Lackey comes down to generate way more damage. And also, in the splash effect of Barista Lynchon coming in, there are also 2 Tomb Wardens that are generated as well, which are more than just coincidental value. That could be insanely powerful.
Yeah, Impact's looking extremely cheerful again now, with the swirly hand motions.
He's making some hilarious jokes that Empanizado is completely unamused by.
He's drinking out of a mug representing one of the teams in his group that isn't his team. That's pretty good. Just completely and utterly dissing Canada by drinking out of a mug.
Love it.
Based on them. Definite BM.
Oh, 100%.
Not that he lived there for a long time or anything.
Oh, this value. Oh my god, this damage is insane. He's just got lethal in a couple turns. Look at
this
this.
Is 12 points of oof. Plus the attack.
Yeah.
Plus the handful of lackeys and... Oh.
That's right. Hero Power Kobold is just 8 damage from hand next turn, which is honestly homing in on lethal quite quickly, because while there is a Plague of Death in Torf's hand, there's nothing to go along with that to activate it quite yet, and therefore he's going to have to pull off something else, because otherwise he's just dead.
They're looking down the barrel of a reverse sweep here, which is actually one of the reasons I love Best of 5, because the drama involved in these is... Go.
Sorry, chat are right. I didn't even realize the combo is back with Shudderwock, because the text on Tomb Warden is summon a copy of this minion. So Shudderwock's going to summon a copy of Shudderwock. There's not any Grumble anymore, obviously. But Shudderwock, if there is a Bog Slosher in the pool, could go for Shudderwock bounce itself back to hand for infinite value.
This guy's finally been replaced by Impact.
What a game.
King
what
of the
game,
nonsense.
Man.
What a match.
Yeah.
Every single game has been silly.
I like watching Impact play Hearthstone. This is cool stuff. I mean, I like watching Empanizado play Hearthstone as well. We're going to see a lot more of next GMs.
Exactly, yeah. We only get to see Impact at the moment, at least, in Masters Tours, which he's done pretty well in.
Yes.
It's just the way he just loves card interactions.
There's already Barista and Bog Slosher in the pool. Whoa. Frog Champ.
I feel like it's good at this point that Empanizado is there to temper Impact. Otherwise, like, let's say there's 2 Impacts in that room, the whole thing would be a real mess.
He's already bouncing. He's just 1 step away from bouncing off the walls at this point. Right, we're looking at a lot of damage.
Why we're not, let's have a look how they can stop this damage, just in case they can.
Yeah,
how much even they can't.
Like 3 times tables at this point. 6 times 3, 18, 22, 24 damage just represented on board. Torf has no way to activate the Plague of Death, and therefore we're just seeing Resolve hit the board and pray that this is enough to alive.
The man who's played Bloodlust for a month solid in 2,000 Shaman games goes 3, 6, 9, 12, 15.
I don't think I've counted Bloodlust once. You just play it, and then you win.
Right. That's fair.
Important remembering now that Hero Power plus Sandstorm does not
MC Tech kills 2 of these things, or now they've made space, it steals them.
Yep.
Takes the Azot so the Brewmaster can forget its job.
Good point. Yeah, the real thing in limiting impact here is actually just board space. He can't kill off enough of his minions, but what he can do is turn the board into 9 moves.
All 3 of these games have been nonsense, Derek, and I'm loving it.
Oh!
And he gets the Nozdormu. I was going to say...
Those are like all the dragon aspects, one after the
I
other.
love that.
I'm just saying,
That's
Blizzard
amazing,
is
actually.
rigging this as an advert for Descent of Dragons. I'm calling it right now. This is an advert for the next expansion.
Self-BM from Dr. Boom as well. Like, you get 15 seconds. Just, oh, I love that fuse thing as you try and deal with a board of every dragon.
That is Giga GG. Giga GG.
Isn't the correct play to deal with Nozdormu first, so you can actually think about the rest of your turn?
Probably. I mean, he's done that as quick as possible.
Yeah, he has. Wow. So this is where Impact, when it gets back to him, will spend 74 seconds working out if Shudderwock will kill him if he plays it, and then just win with the Kobolds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
Absolute nonsense.
This is absolute and utter nonsense.
I now understand
Especially
why
this-
Impact has spent all week tweeting and Facebooking and everything about this match.
Just look at this. Like, we could see Dream on the Shudderwock. Dream on the N'Zoth to bounce it back. Or is there any way to get Star Aligner lethal?
Oh
Not
my
quite.
goodness.
That would
I mean,
be
there probably is
so.
at this point.
It's just got lethal anyway, I think. But
Yeah.
that is going to be game. Dream on the Kobold Lackey to bounce it back to hand. Impact, you are an absolute mad lad. And Mexico go 3-2 up over Brazil to advance through in the winners portion of this.
Brazil don't have to get involved in some crazy matchups in this HCG. And this is one of the craziest. This is one of the most fun Hearthstone best of fives I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of Hearthstone.
That's right.
That was in a meta that has been accused, possibly rightly, of being a little bit dull at the moment. That wasn't dull. That was amazing.
Those were some awesome games of Hearthstone. If that's how it goes, I want to see more Rogue and I want to see more nonsense with Quest Shaman because that was an absolute delight to watch. And like you said, Brazil have been favourites of Hearthstone Global Games for a while now, especially after last year's performance. And it's somewhat surprising, I think it's fair to say, to see them lose to Mexico after going up 2-0. But I think it really just hammers home my point that Mexico is one of the Latin American countries that's coming into the forefront now after being definitely in the shadows when compared to Argentina and Brazil. Empanizado GM, very strong match there from Impact and Empanizado. And I think they are just some very strong competitors and a strong country overall.
Yeah, the Americas region is showing that they have more than just the USA and Canada for sure. And I'm going to get bored of saying this, but definitely a team that can win this event.
For sure.
And you're going to mock me every time I say it, aren't you? Yeah, I thought you were.
No. I agree completely. There's a lot of countries that are overlooked when you compare them to the likes of France, Germany, Norway, USA. The real powerhouse, obvious standout countries at the start. You forget that there are a lot of just very, very strong countries when you take into account their 2 top players.
Yeah, and again, they're showing that there. And they're doing it with a bit of style and amusement as well. I thoroughly enjoyed that. But that's just 5 of the 6 matches still to go today. We have one more for you. So stay tuned and hopefully it'll be as good as the one we just watched.